The atmosphere at Indian Wells was electric. Filipino flags everywhere. Fans packed into Stadium 1 like it was a Grand Slam final. Eala had just done the unthinkable, beating Coco Gauff on her home turf, sending the crowd into absolute delirium. The tournament director called it one of the most electric atmospheres he'd ever seen. Then, 2 days later, Eala lost to Linda Noskova in straight sets. And that's when something even more shocking happened. The cameras panned to the stands, and the seats were empty. Thousands of fans who had packed the stadium just 48 hours earlier were gone. The viewership numbers crashed, the energy evaporated, and now tournament officials are facing a question they never expected. Is the WTA's biggest draw right now not a Grand Slam champion?
To understand why Eala's exit from Indian Wells sent shockwaves through the tournament, you have to understand what happened in the days before she left. The 20-year-old Filipina arrived in the California desert as the number 31 seed, having already established herself as one of the most compelling stories in women's tennis. But even her most ardent fans couldn't have predicted what was about to unfold. Her first match against Diana Yastremska went past midnight, yet hundreds of Filipino fans stayed in their seats, waving flags, chanting her name, turning Stadium 3 into a home away from home. Eala, visibly moved, said afterward, "It means the world to have this community behind me in such a prestigious tournament. For them to make the effort to stay up late and stay in the cold and cheer me on, it really added to the feelings and the emotions." Then came the match that broke the internet. Coco Gauff, the world number 4, the American hope, the two-time Grand Slam champion, stood across the net. The crowd in Stadium 1 was supposed to be hers, but when Eala raced to a 6-2, 2-0 lead before Gauff was forced to retire with a left arm injury, something remarkable happened. The roar that followed wasn't for the American star, it was for the Filipina who had just conquered her. Tournament director Tommy Haas, a former world number 2 who has seen every generation of tennis greatness, was asked if he could ever witnessed anything like the commitment of Eala's fans. His answer was immediate and unequivocal: no.
2 days after Eala's stadium-shaking victory over Coco Gauff, the lights came up on Stadium 1 for her fourth-round match against Linda Noskova. The atmosphere was supposed to be electric. Instead, it was something else entirely. The cameras panned across the stands, and the seats told a story that no tournament official wanted to see. Entire sections of the 16,102 capacity stadium sat empty. Where thousands of Filipino flags had waved just 48 hours earlier, there were now rows of vacant blue seats. The roar that had followed every Eala winner was replaced by an eerie silence that echoed through the California desert night. The contrast was jarring for anyone who had witnessed the scene just days before. In her opening match against Diana Yastremska, which stretched past midnight on Stadium 3, Eala's supporters had packed the venue, staying through the cold desert night, their chants carrying through the darkness. When she defeated Gauff, the flag-waving contingent had transformed the upper bowl into a sea of yellow and blue. Now, with Eala gone, so were they. The ticketing controversy that had simmered all week suddenly became impossible to ignore. Tournament officials had changed the policy for Stadium 2 this year, revoking the right of grounds pass holders to access the 8,000-seat venue. Those seats, which used to fill up with passionate fans moving between courts, now sat sparsely attended, even for matches featuring top players like Alina Svitolina. But the problem on Stadium 1 was different. Eala's fans had bought tickets specifically for her matches. When she exited, they exited with her, and the television networks noticed immediately. Just 48 hours before Eala's lopsided loss to Linda Noskova, the BNP Paribas Open had set a single-day attendance record that stunned even tournament officials. Nearly 59,000 fans packed the Indian Wells Tennis Garden on the tournament's first Friday, flooding the grounds in numbers that hadn't been seen since the event became the fifth Grand Slam. The grounds were teeming. General admission courts were oversubscribed. The energy was electric. Then Eala lost 6-2, 6-0 in just 56 minutes, and the energy vanished with her. When Linda Noskova stepped onto Stadium 1 for her quarterfinal match against Talia Gibson 2 days later, the contrast was impossible to ignore. The stands that had been packed with flag-waving Filipino fans just 72 hours earlier were now dotted with empty seats. The roar that had followed every Eala winner was replaced by the hollow echo of tennis balls against racket strings. The viewership numbers told an even uglier story. Television ratings for the Noskova-Gibson quarterfinal cratered compared to the Eala Gauff match. Networks that had enjoyed a massive ratings bump from the Filipino diaspora tuning in across multiple continents suddenly saw their numbers return to baseline. The international audience that had discovered Indian Wells through Eala's run simply clicked away. What the numbers revealed was uncomfortable for tournament organizers, but undeniable. Eala had become the story of Indian Wells, not because of her ranking or her seed, but because of something far more valuable. A passionate, engaged, global fan base that traveled with her wherever she played. When she left, they left too. Eala's impact on Indian Wells wasn't an accident. It was the culmination of a movement that has been building for months, and tournament director Tommy Haas sees it clearly. The record crowds. So many fans here over the weekend, every single day, Haas told Tennis Channel. It's been packed for players like Eala, João Fonseca, seeing the Filipino fans, the Brazilian. Have you ever seen anything like that in terms of their commitment to those players? No, but that's fantastic to see. It's all about the growth in the evolving in the tennis world, global sport. What Haas witnessed at Indian Wells is a phenomenon that has been playing out across the tennis calendar. At the Australian Open in January, thousands of Filipinos descended on Melbourne Park, creating a logjam outside Court 6 and a line that stretched several hundred yards through the grounds. Eala's pre-tournament press conference was watched online by 171,000 people, dwarfing the numbers for superstars Carlos Alcaraz, Coco Gauff, and Aryna Sabalenka combined. In Dubai, where nearly 1 million Filipinos work as overseas professionals, the pattern repeated. Her matches were moved to center court to accommodate the crowds, and even opponents like Jasmine Paolini complained about the noise. In Miami, Jessica Pegula experienced an entire stadium turn against her, despite being the hometown favorite. It's a new demographic, Coco Gauff acknowledged after her injury-shortened match against Eala. I know sometimes it's tough when you're playing against a home crowd. That home crowd follows Eala everywhere, not because she has a home tournament, but because the Filipino diaspora has turned every tournament into one. California alone is home to nearly 2 million Filipinos, the largest concentration in the United States. They came to Indian Wells by the thousands, waving flags, wearing Philippines shirts, turning Stadium 1 into a sea of yellow and blue. The Filipinos have such a strong sense of community, Eala said. I feel like when one of us does well and is succeeding, we all have that shared sense of pride. One fan interviewed by tournament officials put it simply, "She's humble and she works hard. That's why we like her. She's the face of Philippine sports now." Another admitted to subscribing to tennis channels only when Eala plays. "We pay only when Alex plays." This is the new reality the WTA.
The numbers have been crunched. The tickets have been counted. The television ratings have been analyzed, and the conclusion is unavoidable. Alex Eala has become one of the most valuable assets in women's tennis. For Indian Wells, the lesson is painful but clear. The tournament set an attendance record on the back of international fandom, Eala's Filipinos, João Fonseca's Brazilians, the global diaspora that turns tennis tournaments into cultural celebrations. When those players exit, the fans exit too. Tommy Haas, the tournament director, understands this dynamic better than most. He's watched tennis evolve from a sport dominated by Americans and Europeans to a truly global phenomenon. It's all about the growth in the evolving in the tennis world. Global sport, he said. But growth comes with growing pains, and Indian Wells just experienced them firsthand. For the WTA, Eala's emergence presents both an opportunity and a challenge. The opportunity is obvious, a new star with a built-in global audience, capable of driving ratings and ticket sales wherever she plays. The challenge is learning how to market that star effectively, how to schedule her matches to maximize viewership, how to build tournaments around the reality that her fans travel with her. For broadcasters, the math is simple but uncomfortable. Eala's matches draw numbers that rival Grand Slam quarterfinals. Her non-Eala matches draw numbers that look like Tuesday afternoons in July. The question isn't whether to feature her, it's how to build programming around the reality that her fan base is both massive and intensely focused. For Eala herself, the path forward is clear but daunting. She's no longer just a promising young player. She's a phenomenon, a cultural icon, a player whose every match carries the weight of millions of hopes. The pressure will only intensify. Every time Alex plays, it's not just her on the court, it's the entire Philippines, one fan said. That's an enormous burden for a 20-year-old to carry. But if her performance at Indian Wells is any indication, she's ready for it. The stands at Stadium 1 may have emptied when she left, but they'll fill again the next time she plays, and the time after that, and the time after that. Because Alex Eala isn't just a tennis player anymore. She's a movement, and movements don't disappear after one loss. For more coverage of the biggest stories in tennis, subscribe and hit the notification bell.